Welcome once again to Inside Athletics, brought to you by the IAAF. I'm your host, Ato Bolden. This is a very special episode of Inside Athletics because we have a living legend, the 400-meter world record holder, Olympic gold medalist several times over, and one of my biggest rivals in my own career, Mr. Michael Johnson. Michael, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Ato. Good to see you.
The first question I have to ask you involves something we both do for a living now, broadcasting. I want to know, how do you be honest about British athletes and still somehow get that respect from the public? It's a very, very fine line that you walk on the BBC.
It's a good question. I think that the British public respects honesty and constructive criticism, and balance as well, and that's what I try to bring. I have always seen my role as a pundit and as a broadcaster as educating the fan at home about what they are seeing. I've been on the other side of the camera, as have you, where we don't always, as athletes, want to reveal everything in those interviews. And then what we sometimes reveal, the viewer at home is saying, that does not quite match up. So my job is to be that go-between and to translate what you're hearing from the athlete and what's really going on.
Let me ask you about the 400 meters now for women. I interviewed Allyson Felix recently, and she sort of held her cards close to the vest and wouldn't tell me. But just looking at what her season schedule looks like for 2015, it seems to me like Allyson is saying, look, I have 3 world titles at 200 and an Olympic gold. I've done everything I can possibly do. I'm not going to break the world record in that event. I am now going to be a quarter miler. I want to know what you think about her championship prospects down the road, and if she can be an Olympic and a world champion.
If she's actually saying that, then she's saying the same thing that I've been saying for years. She has talent to move down to 100 and move up to 400. Previously, she's always leaned more towards, if I'm going to go anywhere, I'd rather go down to 100. But I think she has tremendous talent at 400 meters. I think that she could have already been a dual 200, 400 meter medalist. And I would love to see her move up to 400. I think that she could be world champion at 400. I think she could be Olympic champion at 400. And quite honestly, and I'm a huge Allyson Felix fan, and being an Allyson Felix fan, I've been disappointed that I haven't seen her contest the 400 meters more at championships.
Now, you wear many hats. You're an agent, you're obviously a broadcaster, you're an ambassador, but you're also an entrepreneur. And you've had Michael Johnson Performance in Dallas for quite some time. It seems like every time I look up, you've signed another country. You signed Trinidad and Tobago, another entity, another professional sports team. Tell me how that business came about and where it is now.
Yeah, it's what I spend most of my time doing. I'm no longer in the agent business. But this has taken off so much. I started Michael Johnson Performance 8 years ago, and what we do is we provide training programs for NFL teams, Major League Baseball teams, all of the American team sports, Olympic federations around the world. We do have Trinidad and Tobago, Brazilian Olympic team, Brazilian Paralympic team, Azerbaijan. We provide consulting for football teams around the world, Premier League teams, Man U, Arsenal. And we do work with track and field athletes as well. But we focus specifically on athletic development. So speed, strength, power, agility, relative to the sport that the athlete plays. So it's been tremendously exciting for me to develop the company to where we are now. We are a global organization. We operate in 12 different countries around the world. And we have athletes coming from around the world to our headquarters in Dallas, and it's a tremendous amount of fun for me. I studied business at university, so that's what I do. I'm not out there training the athletes. If I were, they would probably get slower. And so I keep my place, but I've got a great staff of coaches and sports scientists and physical therapists all working on behalf of our athletes.
Let's talk about Baylor for a little while, and I look at Baylor of late. Not the powerhouse they used to be in the 4x4, but you have a young guy, Trayvon Bromell, who he's the real deal, and he's running very, very well. He's the NCAA champion at both 100 as well as the indoor 200. That was a real surprise to me to see how fast he ran this year. Tell me about what you know about him and what you think his prospects are long term.
I just met him just a couple of weeks ago
Really?
at the Michael Johnson Classic in Waco for the first time.
You've seen him run?
I've seen him run, but he was a freshman last year, so
Right.
he hasn't been at
Just a
Baylor
sophomore.
very
That's
long.
right. That's
So
right.
great kid, very focused, and one of those athletes who's truly special. You hear that a lot.
Yes.
You and I probably don't say that about people as much as a lot of other people
we
would. So when
don't.
you and I say
Well, we're a
very
little bit more
special
honest,
athlete,
yeah.
No, he is a very special athlete in that he understands the event at a level that I would not have expected for someone of his age. When I talked to him about the 100 meters and even the 200 meters, his understanding of the event and understanding of himself as an athlete and how to get the best from himself, was far beyond his years in terms of maturity, I thought. And I thought the 200-meter NCAA championship indoors was a real example of that, in that he false started in the 60.
Right.
And the 200 meters is not his strong event, and
20.1, right?
And understood how to get the best performance from himself in that situation.
Yeah.
So he's special. I think that he could be a real future for sprinting in the U.S.
My favorite event to cover, always has been, and I make no secret about it, is the women's 100-meter hurdles. They line up everywhere. It's always a close race. The medals and the titles go back and forth. What's your favorite event in this era to sort of watch and cover?
It changes. It goes back
does.
and forth. I mean, I'll tell you, in 2011, 2012, 2013, men's 400-meter hurdles was a race that I always wanted to see. I mean, those guys line up every time, and it was always a situation where
A lot of parity in the event.
I don't know which one of these guys is going to win, and that's exciting to see. While it's great to see Usain Bolt run away from everyone else because you're getting a chance to see the best sprinter there's ever been, arguably. But the sport is about competition, and that's what I love about it. That's what I've always loved about it as a competitor. That's what I love about it as a fan and as a broadcaster, is seeing the events where I don't know who's going to win today. I'm going to see a high-quality race against, with 8 people lining up, and 5, 6 of the people in the race could win today.
Right.
And because they're the best in the world, and there is that parity across the lanes.
And when I interviewed Frankie Fredericks, I said to him, and I say it to you, I look up to you guys because I was a little younger in the sport. And then post-career, I still look up to you guys in terms of what you've done post-career. There's so many athletes who are doing very well now, but they have that anxiety. When I stop getting those Nike and Mizuno and Adidas and Asics checks, how do I make that transition? What concrete steps can I take while I am while my name still counts for something, to make sure that my transition to post-career is smooth? You've been one of the best at it. What did you do?
Well, I acknowledge first off, when I first entered the sport, that when I retire, I'm going to have a lot of living still left to do. What am I going to do with those years? Because this is not a job that you can do until you're 60 and 70 years old. So the fact that those athletes are asking that question to begin with is a great step in the right direction, and the best first step.
Not all of them are asking. Some of them.
Right. Those that are, and more should be asking that question, and they should be then ask themselves, what other things am I interested in outside of being an athlete?
Right.
And the great thing about athletics as a sport is it does expose you to lots of things around the world. It exposes you to the world that is very small now in terms of accessibility, and it wasn't that way when I first started in the sport. The other thing is, now athletes have a lot more control over their image, over their brand. They can broadcast themselves. They can put things out there through all of the social media platforms that we didn't have.
Right.
And that is something that I think that athletes have to be very careful with, and not to get too caught up in that, and make sure they understand, now, how will I transition this into more opportunities for myself? And if you do that, then that can survive your athletic career, this social media profile that you have. And so start to think about how you can transition that profile into things that are realistic. It's not realistic to think that you're going to have a reality television show, which, by the way, people don't get paid to be on reality television shows unless you're Kim Kardashian.
That's right. People don't know that.
People don't know that. So understand, what you want to do, and how that works, and take this time. I mean, look, as a track and field athlete, you're training every day, but you have a lot of downtime.
Yes, you do.
You have a tremendous amount of downtime. Take that downtime to research and think about and figure out the things that you're interested in and how those things actually work.
The 200-meter question that I have for you is probably not the one you'd think, because it goes back to 1991. People look at your 1932 world record in the 96 Olympics and they go, that time was so ahead of its time. Of course, now with Usain and Johan, all those guys, they go, well, okay, yeah, maybe it was 12 years before its time. But I look back at that 1991 World Championship performance, right, into I think a 3.3 meter per second headwind. That's a lot of wind. And you ran what, 20.01 or something like that?
20.01, yeah.
It got you your first Sports Illustrated cover. Do you look back at that race and go, I don't understand why everybody was so surprised at 19.6 and 19.3, because if you do the math on that race, I was already in 1991 sort of on that path already.
I thought when I first came into the sport as a professional in 1990, and the world record for the 200 meters,
72.
19.72, which was broken in 1979, I thought that record should already be gone.
Right.
Why is it not gone? It should have already moved on. So no, I wasn't surprised with the 1932. I knew that I was capable of running it. I always thought, and I still think, that I was capable of running under 19 seconds.
Wow.
I split 18.5 on a 4x200 meter relay
at
for Baylor University. Exactly. And that was my junior year of college.
Yeah.
So I knew what I was capable of doing. And it's just a matter of putting together the right races and being in the right situation, and certainly having Frankie and you breathing down my neck.
I take no credit for that.
All year long.
Yeah.
You remember that race in Stockholm just a few months before when I was like, I got to get out because this guy's running really fast. But you know, it was just you know, a matter of the right situation. I always ran faster times when I was at a championship, when there's lots at stake, and when there are great athletes like yourself and Frankie, you know, as competition.
Yeah. Let's go back to Barcelona. I don't know if I've ever heard you explain completely what happened to you in Barcelona. We talked about 91 just now, and 92, there is no bigger favorite. And I've heard everything. His shoe broke, the food poisoning, you know, Michael Marsh, he was scared of Michael Marsh. What happened in 1992 where you not only didn't get a medal, you didn't make the final?
Yeah, food poisoning.
Yeah.
So my last tune-up meet was in Salamanca, Spain.
Spain.
And yeah, and that's where it happened. That's when it went down. I got food poisoning, lost a lot of weight.
Right.
And I actually thought, because I had a week and a half before the game, 2 weeks before the games, I actually thought I was fine, because during that time, I'm not doing any repeat 300s and that sort of thing. You know, you're tapering, you're working on technical things. So I'm thinking I'm fine. I knew I'd lost some weight and was starting to gain it back. And so actually, I actually went into the first round as I normally would, thinking, okay, yeah, I always run my first round, just run the bend hard and then shut it down for the last 100 meters. And I ran the first bend hard, and I found myself in a battle to stay ahead. And I just barely won that race.
That must have been a surprise.
I felt like I was running in someone else's spot.
Right.
I did advance to the quarterfinal, which was later that day, but I knew that it was going to be tough. I advanced out of the quarterfinal, but didn't get into the semifinal.
Well, Michael, real pleasure to have you on the show, man. All the best with all your ventures, man. Always good to see you.
All right, good to see you, man. Appreciate it. All right.